around candidate experience. And building a great candidate experience is a really important thing right now. I think we understand the challenge. We understand the fact that there are less and less people available. So when we bring people into a process, how well do we treat them? That's a question that we really should be asking of ourselves. And it's great to see organizations putting in new processes and new and innovative ways of doing that. We're joined now by Sofia Torra and Jeremy Schmidt. Sofia is from Trivago. She's a product manager at Trivago. Jeremy is Director of Talent Acquisition at Codility. This is going to be a great session. Sadly, I won't be able to join you for the Q&A, despite the fact I have lots of questions, but my colleague Colin will be handling the Q&A at the end of it. But so nice to see the pair of you, and I will hand over to Sofia and Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So hello, everybody. We are so excited to host today's session in regards to how to build a great candidate experience. And in today's crazy competitive environment post the Great Resignation, candidates have a choice of where they go, and they know it. So the experience that you give them through your process plays such a key role in their decision making. So in this fireside chat, we are going to discuss effective ways to source and attract candidates. We're going to talk about how you build a structured process to lower your time to fill while delivering that great candidate experience, giving you the best opportunity to close the candidate. And lastly, we want to give you some actionable takeaways that you can actually implement today, including some great sourcing templates that we've had some success with in the past. So hi, I'm Jeremy Schmidt. I am the Director of Global TA for Codility, and I'm thrilled to have Sofia Torra join me today from Trivago. So Sofia, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about your role, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jeremy, for the introduction. My name is Sofia. I am currently working as a product manager for Trivago's internal productivity tools portfolio. Previous to this role, I was in the recruitment team as a senior tech recruiter focused with our engineering profiles. One of the highlights of my recruitment career besides bringing in a bunch of wonderful people to our organization, has also been improving the recruitment process and seeing how the market has shifted throughout the past years. I'm really excited to dive in a bit deeper into sharing how we identified a few pain points that we had in our process and how we improved that over the course of the past couple of years. So hopefully share some valuable takeaways for everyone, and yeah, excited to dive in.
Awesome. So I know we have about 25 minutes today or so. So we're going to dive right into some questions. So my first question for you, Sofia, is tell us a little bit about your recruitment process in the past, some of the challenges that you faced, and what have you had to change to become much more competitive?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I think it's important to say that Trivago's always had the same goal. We've had the same goal in our recruitment team 5 years ago as we do today. And that is finding top talent who really shares the same company values that we embody. We're also always having candidate experience at the top of our priority. What that's looked like, though, has changed throughout the past couple of years. Anyone who is familiar with the industry and shares the recruitment space with us can understand that the market has changed. You know, what you mentioned earlier, we have seen the past couple of years being called the war for talent. The Great Resignation is a good one. So we've really had to shift and take a look at our process to see what areas we could improve in order to stay competitive. Candidates are getting offers left and right. It is a candidate market, and as a tech company, or as really any company, you have to ensure that you are giving candidates the best possible experience, because that's really going to also mirror what their career could look like at your organization. So as I mentioned, we had to take a closer look at our processes in order to identify those areas that we could improve. Some of the actions that we have taken in the past couple of years have taken us to now reduce the overall time to hire, not only for all roles, but specifically our technical roles, also some very difficult to hire roles. So we've seen a lot of improvement there. And we've also experienced that we've gotten better feedback from our candidates after the hiring process, we send out surveys. So the positive candidate experience has improved. We've personalized our processes from the beginning all the way to the end, which I'm happy to walk through some of those changes. So those are some of the results we've seen from the actions we've taken. And to answer the second part, please jump in at any point, but to answer the second part of the question, what was the recruitment like prior, right? And what really changed? So I did already say we tried to make our process a bit more personalized. And what that means from the beginning is sourcing, as anyone who's on LinkedIn knows, we get messages all the time, but what really makes us, if we're not actively looking, which let's be honest, a lot of candidates who are really great candidates and are happy in their roles, they're not actively looking. They're passively might be interesting. So you might have to make an extra effort to really stand out to these candidates. So we have kind of structured our sourcing strategies, not only to make it more personal for the candidate, but also involving our hiring teams at times. So if we have a very critical role for the business, we will invite our hiring manager to do some sourcing with not the actual hands-on sourcing, but maybe share some profiles they might be interested in, and then have them reach out to candidates as well. And we have noticed a dramatic increase in response rate when the hiring manager is involved from the beginning as well. So we've done that for our really hard to fill tech roles, and again, have seen already a positive impact there. And another thing that we've changed from the past is for our non-tech roles, I mean, the hard skills are sometimes the soft skills, right? So how do you test for that? Or how do you look into that when you have a high volume of applications and maybe you don't have the time to do all these interviews? So what we used to do is we had a software that would have candidates record themselves and kind of do a monologue and answer some questions. But the feedback we were receiving from candidates was not great. And we realized that this kind of software was maybe not giving us the results we were looking for, and kind of being almost counterproductive in a way, where candidates did not enjoy sitting there answering a question and having only maybe 20, 30 seconds, a minute to the most. So we've also improved that from our process. We've removed that, and we've ensured that we have screening calls at the beginning of every single process, no matter if we're hiring an intern or a high-level engineer. And we've seen as well more engagement from candidates doing this as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think when we look at the process and how it involves the candidates, you have to really map out the different touch points that you're going to have to provide them with that great candidate experience. And one thing we do at Codility is we let them know up front that we're totally cognizant that they're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing them, right? And we want to be able to sit down with them during that first call and tell them each step in the process, why it's important for us, what we're trying to measure, but also giving them the opportunity to speak with some of the key stakeholders so that, again, they can interview us for the role and make sure that it's a great fit for them. One thing we implemented in Q4 of last year that's been real successful is a choose your own interview path. So any candidate that sort of gets to that second stage in our process, we want to allow them the opportunity to look across our organization and maybe find someone that could be an interesting conversation for them about what it's really like to work here, and that's totally off the record and it doesn't affect their candidacy at all. So whether that's a new engineer that just onboarded, they want to talk about our onboarding process and how to get up to speed technically, or it could be a director's level role and they want to speak with the CEO to see what the direction of this organization is like, and is the culture, what they see out there. So I think that's been a huge benefit for us. And I'd say roughly 25% to 30% of candidates actually take us up on that piece. But the ones that even don't, you can see their eyes light up. You can see that they can tell that this is something different. And a lot of the feedback is, wow, like I can't believe I could speak to your CEO like if I wanted, and you guys are offering that to me during the process. So that's been a big change that we've made that's been very, very successful. And I know too, Sofia, that you guys on the technical side of the house had made the switch and implemented Codility to help with your assessment process on those technical roles. Can you tell us a little bit about what how you made that decision to come to Codility and how that transition has gone for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to reference your previous point, I think that's also a great way to personalize a process. There's not one perfect way to do it. You can find ways and get creative. I haven't actually heard of other companies doing that initiative, and I think it's fantastic for candidates to get to know the company from maybe an executive level person. So I think it is great that you're offering that as well. And from our end, we hear the word time to hire. You ask yourselves, how do you reduce that? Every company wants to reduce the time to hire because at the end of the day, probably one of the best chance you'll get to get a candidate you want is to move quickly, right? You don't want them to get snagged by another company. So how do you do this when you have a full process and steps along the way? So as you mentioned, what we did with our technical roles is there's not a one size fits all formula for reducing the time to hire. I wish there was, but there's not. So there are definitely steps you can take to identify the pain points in your process. And then from there, you can work on a plan and figure out where are the areas that we need to fix in order to reduce this time. So that's essentially where we started. We knew we needed to reduce our time to hire for technical roles because we were getting candidates declining offers because they had a job offer while they were already in the middle of our process. So how did we look into this is, first of all, we have a great ATS that provides a lot of analytics and data. So I would encourage everyone to leverage the data that the ATS gives you, because that's essentially what's going to give you a lot of the answers for you to take certain actions to improve your process and candidate experience. So what we did is we took a step back. We looked at the average time per stage in our whole hiring cycle. We then identified that our tech talent was spending an average of 20 days in the assessment stage. So this was a huge red flag that was lifted. We already knew, right, that this was a blocker in certain processes. We already knew it, but we didn't have any tangible numbers. And when we saw this, we knew immediately we needed to take action. It's absolutely unacceptable to have candidates in a tech assessment stage for 20 plus days. In any stage, really, you should, especially in this market. So what we did is we took a closer look to this area. We also found two other indicators for improvement. We also saw that 35% of candidates were not submitting their assessments in the stage. And then we also saw that our pass-through rate was significantly higher than the following step, which would be the technical interview. This essentially also indicated that we could improve the assessment to be able to filter better the skills we were looking for. So this would help as much candidates as it would for our hiring teams. So this gave us a big project to say, okay, we need to improve this area. That's when we got in touch with Codility. We found an amazing assessment tool to help us automate the process. And the favorite, because let's go back to what I said at the beginning and what I want to emphasize, to improve not only candidate experience, but overall your recruitment process, is personalizing the experience to the candidate. And we definitely did not want to lose that aspect while automating processes, right? Because it's a fine line you cross. So that's what we really liked about Codility, is we were able to dramatically reduce our time to hire in this assessment stage and overall tech profiles by automating processes without removing that personalized connection to candidates. So essentially, with automating this process, we were able to help candidates move through the process faster. We were able to also help our hiring teams that were spending hours, countless hours, reviewing these assessments, preparing the assessments, which overall extended the process as well. And I want to highlight and talk about what we've seen in only a little bit under a year. Our completion rate dropped to about 20 to 25% from 35, which is already a really, really big chunk. The time spent in completion, this is my favorite one to highlight, reduced from 20 days to 12 average. So this already reduces our overall time to hire by 8 days. And the assessment stage is crisp. The candidates have enough time to submit something. It's automatically graded, so we can pass them on to the next stage. Our hiring teams don't have to spend the hours, which can also lead to sometimes biases. So we've removed that as well. And a great thing is that in some processes, we've eliminated the take-home task altogether because we've implemented the code life of Codility, which is a great way for hiring teams to personalize the process, bring in candidates, and do the coding together. So this has been also a great improvement. You can even say that we've reduced that from 20 days to 1 day because that's done in 1 day. There's no need to do a take-home assessment and wait. And also the pass-through rate has reduced to 25%, which in a way, if you look at it from that perspective, it's great, right? Because we're doing a better job at finding the right candidate, and we're doing candidates, we're communicating what the requirements are, we're being transparent, as well as being as efficient as possible for Trivago. So yeah.
That's huge. Cutting the assessment stage phase almost in half obviously frees up a significant amount of time, for your engineering team. And I think that one thing that gets lost a little bit in regards to the assessment technology is a big part of a solution like Codility is also to help you breed better relationships with the engineering side of the house and with your stakeholders. Because if you send over 20 candidates and their teams spend time interviewing all 20, and none are a technical fit, the TA side of the house then becomes paper pushers, right? They're not a strategic partner to help solve hiring problems and to drive diversity and build innovation and help grow teams. So by providing better candidates that are a technical fit faster, cutting that assessment stage in half, giving your engineers so much time back in their day to actually do what they love, which is solve problems and write code, I assume all of this also then increases productivity. It helps with the overall happiness, of your development teams because they're spending time doing what they love. So are there any metrics that you all tracked that you can see how giving engineers time back has, affected the process?
Yeah. And that's a really great point to bring up because I think the strategic partnership is what we strive for as recruiters with our hiring teams. We want to build that trust. And we went from being tech assessment police who were just knocking on doors, asking people to make reviews every day, because as you said, we could sometimes have over a weekend, we would have 10, 15 candidates submit a case study. It takes 15 plus minutes to review a case study, and that would be on the lower end, I would say. So as far as metrics, we did, before implementing the tool and when we first started looking at this, we had to quantify what hours look like, how hiring managers, hiring teams, because it's a team effort really, it doesn't all fall on the hiring manager. What was the actual, if we could quantify the time spent? And what we saw is that the average time spent in reviewing holistically was 700 plus hours, which is absolute, yeah. When we saw that, we knew it was a lot, as I mentioned, but when you see the numbers and you actually are able to quantify it, it really opens up, a whole other picture. And that's pretty much the driver as well, besides the candidate experience, because we also had some feedback from candidates. But I would say as you mentioned, the time it freed up from our engineering teams was dramatic. So seeing that was one of the main drivers to alleviate them as well from hiring being a burden to something they enjoyed.
Yeah. So lowering your time to hire, cutting your assessment phase in half, increasing candidate satisfaction as they go through your process, and all of those things and how it builds towards that candidate experience just gives you such a better chance to close that candidate at the end, because we all know that they're going to have multiple offers, but then the way that they view your brand is going to be a little bit different. So I know that from a candidate experience and sourcing perspective, it really starts from the original outreach. Their first touch point with you will gauge their interest if they even want to get involved in your process. So tell me a little bit about how you've changed your sourcing function to attract candidates to your brand.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one thing I have to mention is, for anyone who's not familiar with our company, we are in the travel industry. And not only has the market gone crazy for all of us, but the travel industry has also been hard hit. So it is natural for people out there to be a little bit wary of their, getting involved in the travel industry. So I think that is one aspect that we had to kind of adapt when we were reaching out to candidates and really make sure that we protected our brand and ensured them that what we stood for was more of a bigger picture than something we had in passing these past few years. As far as from a smaller picture, what we did as well is, I think what we've seen the most dramatic impact on was involving our hiring managers. This might sound a bit tedious for those out there who are hiring managers listening, but as recruiters, we had the initial outreach to candidates in the sense where we would see if they were available. And then from there, sometimes the hiring managers would also jump on the list with us of candidates we had shortlisted and send those messages themselves. They would then, because I can see a candidate's profile, but I'm not in the same discipline. So our hiring teams were able to specifically tailor that as well to those messages. So, if they saw their LinkedIn profile and saw XYZ technologies that they're familiar with, they were able to personalize that even further. So really partnering with the hiring teams to reach out to candidates was something that I think really saw an effect after in the response rate.
I love that. And I think in today's day and age as well, how you train your recruiters to represent your company plays such a critical role in how you can attract, the right type of talent. So if everyone has their cell phones, get them out now and snap a couple screenshots here. But I have 2 sourcing templates that we've used that have had over a 50% response rate. And when you're talking with some of your executives and looking at some of the metrics, if you have over a 30% response rate, LinkedIn considers you like a 5-star player, right? Like that is an awesome response rate in today's crazy world that we live in. So if you can get into the 40 or 50% range, think of the amount of time you're saving pulling candidates into the top of the funnel. And so this first message here, and why I think it's so effective, is we built this for a senior recruiter that we were hiring in the US. But first, I think candidates, they want to understand the mission of your company. They want to work somewhere where they can have an impact and have influence, but something that they can get behind. So talking about how our platform removes that unconscious bias from the hiring process, helps organizations drive diversity into the top of the funnel, and has such a positive effect from a DE&I perspective, I think is very, very engaging. But the one thing about our messaging is it's never about just us in filling a job, right? It has to be about the candidate, right? We want to talk about their background and how that might be a fit for something. But organizations that are still copying and pasting a job link and saying, hey, your background seems to be a great fit for this, please click on our role and feel free to apply. That's just not going to fly in today's age. So be personable, make it about the impact that they could have at your organization, and tailor the message towards them and their goals and their career path. The second message here, I call this the help message. And I think in today's day and age, if you're a good human being and you reach out to someone with a little bit of compassion and ask for help, it's just their natural tendency to want to help somebody. So just the first paragraph of this, I think, sets the tone well. And it says, if my long career in recruiting has taught me anything, it's to ask for help when I need it. This is one of those times. I can talk cloud-based APIs all day long, but ask me to design a long-term global brand strategy around brand ubiquitous in our target markets, verticals, and segments, and I'm totally lost. If I read your profile correctly, that is exactly what you do, and so much more. So it's number one, showing that you read their profile and that it aligns to what they've done in the past. But again, it's just asking for help. And so I think with this message here, we had close to a 45% response rate, which in today's market, again, is just insane. I have a lot of other templates, so if anyone is interested to take this offline, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to dive into that as well. But I think to end today, Sofia, we just wanted to leave the last couple minutes here to talk about some actionable insights that people could walk away with and implement immediately. So what would you like everyone to know?
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to summarize hopefully everything that we've just discussed and reach out with 3 main takeaways I hope everyone can take. The first one is the recruitment market is changing, so you want to make sure you're adapting. revise your processes, remain flexible, and ensure that you're being agile with the recruitment as the market moves and the industry fluctuates. So you can do that by knowing your candidates. You can do that by sending out surveys at the end of processes and really taking in that feedback and doing something with it. Not only that, but leveraging the data and analytics that you are receiving from your ATS, using that information to further increase the candidate experience and make it better, and also improve the process overall. And last but not least, kind of what Jeremy just ended with, you want to personalize the process as much as you can. It's just as important to personalize from the beginning as a sourcing strategy, and really tailoring that message, whether it is with the candidate's profile and making sure you're targeting that to what their LinkedIn says or where you're reaching out to them, but also maintaining that personalization throughout the process. And I think Codility's initiative with choosing your interviewer is a great way to really loop in candidates and help them decipher what they want their interview to look like. They can really tailor that and it fits them. So it's really personable. And I think that dramatically improves candidate experience.
And when I thought about my actionable takeaway for today, I was trying to find something that was very applicable and real to what we were going through. And one exercise I did last week is I sat down and mapped out our entire process on a Miro board with just little sticky notes. And it will really blow your mind when you see the amount of small individual steps that each sort of part of your process takes. But by mapping that out, it gives you a bigger picture on where you could be more efficient and where you could have better candidate touch points. And the one thing that I really looked at was the intake call. And I think most organizations spend their time on the intake call, defining the role, putting together the job description, who is going to be part of the interview process. And of course, all of those things are crucial to document up front so you can build out your process. But the one thing I think everyone could make changes tomorrow on is really focusing that interview team on who is going to sell what part of your organization during the process. Who can talk about the cultural ad and what that means? Who can talk about the leadership and the direction? What little touch points could you build in so that each interviewer doesn't just have, hey, I'm going to measure for these competencies, but I'm also on the same call going to sell to these. Right? Maybe you're hiring a product manager and you're going to talk about some of the key differentiators and the new product roadmap of where they'd be able to drive and make more of an impact. But understanding that part from the intake process up front is a immediate change that I think organizations can make that will really help and benefit the candidate experience. And all in all, it's going to make your process run much, much more efficiently and give you a better chance to close that talent at the end of the process.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So Sofia, Jeremy, that was an absolutely incredible session, and some major shifts in the metrics there. We've got time for one question. I hadn't seen anything come up in the questions box, but apart from lots and lots of praise for reducing the time that people were in the assessment stage from 20 days to 12 days. So the obvious question: how do you go on from there, and what are you going to do to try and shave off some extra days?
That's a great question, and I think that goes back to my key takeaway, and it's stay agile, revise your process, which ties into what Jeremy just shared. I think that exercise is a great way to identify then what's the next step, right? So the way we were able to identify improving that assessment stage was by taking a step back, looking at our entire process and seeing, okay, red flag right there. Let's work on this. So I'm going to repeat that. There's no magic formula, but what I can do is every quarter or maybe twice a year, we'll take a step back, look at the process, what's our analytics telling us, and from there, we'll work on the next.
Fantastic. And I think I know the answer to this. The business case kind of just comes together, doesn't it? When you can't hire and you can't deliver for customers, you've got to get people in, you find a bottleneck. Yes, I know you put people in, you put technology in, there's a cost there, but there's a cost for not putting it in, right? So I assume those conversations weren't as difficult at this particular moment in time as they would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
100% would agree with that. And data doesn't lie. And one of my old CEOs used to always say, how do you know if you're winning if you're not keeping score? And I think from a talent acquisition side, more emphasis has been put on the data the last couple of years and how to identify those bottlenecks, make changes, and be more agile and efficient. And that's where the market is driving.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, both of you. It looks like it's been incredibly successful and you've got many, many years and opportunities to increase that. So thank you so much for your commitment in terms of time, in terms of the insight you provided and for supporting those that are watching and obviously the HRcoreLab movement. So thank you so much. It's been incredible.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Great day. Bye.
Thank you.